I made a short about this, but this most definitely deserves a video. And I want to talk more about this Assassin's Creed game that was supposed to be focused on a black assassin post-Civil War during Reconstruction, where that black assassin would fight the rise of the Klan. And as we know, when it comes to liberals in general, and especially so-called black people, who is the Klan? Who are the racists? Well, it's anybody that's white. Plain and simple. Including the racially cucked white libtards and Democrats who think them proclaiming themselves as allies keep them safe somehow. I mean, that Ukrainian woman who was rumored to be a BLM supporter found that out the hard way when she was stabbed to death, and that Negro claimed that she said the N-word, which was the reason why you could hear him on the audio saying, "I got that white girl, I got that white girl." You know, not to mention the Carmelo Anthony situation where he was able to get rich temporarily from a crowdfund because he simply stabbed a white kid to death. And please believe me, if this game was to be made, it just would have been a game about killing white people. Because just like we've seen with the Charlie Kirk situation, if you're labeled a fascist, you deserve to die, while simply going to colleges to welcome people for debate. Now, again, that was a white-on-white crime, and a lot of the political motivated crimes have been self-hating whites killing other whites. But the run-of-the-mill random murders, well, that's been disproportionately liberal Negroes, or just Negroes in general, killing white people. And quite frankly, when it comes to this whole story about, how it was during the 1800s, early 1900s, Reconstruction and the Klan, and shout out to AK Nation News, digging deeper into that history, you find out, especially from news articles of that time, that black folks weren't these scared, fearing white folks as Hollywood and news media will have you to believe. In fact, the way Negroes criminally behave towards white people today, they were behaving like that back then. And one can easily come to the conclusion that the Klan just so happened to be a group of white folks that refused to live in fear of the coloreds being brought to their country. Because there's no doubt in my mind now that the same thing that's going on with this open borders and illegal immigration, that same narrative that's happening now was happening back then with slaves. Because you have to think about the people that actually brought the slaves over. And it wasn't, the 99% of so-called white people that populated the country. It was a top few who probably subscribed to the same liberal ideology of today of bringing people from other parts of the world to quote-unquote white countries. Because just think about it, bringing all that slave labor was taking jobs from other people. But just like with today, how they don't want to actually pay people a living salary, that same logic was used back then. And thus you had the slavery, who, I might add, Arabs who don't get mentioned, Jews who don't get mentioned, and Africans who don't get mentioned, played a heavy part in that, along with some white folks, the top 1 to 10%. The very same ones who will call themselves SJWs today. That's the reality of that time period, though. But it's just been one giant lie, and as a result, not only do you get the movies and television shows, but you get the video games that tell the false narrative of the time. Now, this particular game it's being canceled, but there's plenty of subject matter which is really just a green light about it's okay to deem a certain group of people as hateful and kill them. Now you have some people in this gamer sphere saying that, well, they're canceling the game because people that work for Ubisoft are being harassed, because Assassin's Creed, the Yakuza Japanese narratives, they've been hijacking those, giving Negro protagonists in a Japanese setting and Japanese females, putting them above the Japanese male. And people didn't like it. And of course, the workers there will call that harassment because people don't like them intentionally trying to blackwash Japanese history and trying to emasculate Japanese men, and particularly their historical heroes and figures. And there's one little outlet talking about how they were so stressed from all the hate. They saw a psychologist to get through just the harsh criticisms of us being, premeditatedly malicious about trying to hijack other people's history. So, of course, that's the reason that they're going to give. They don't want their employees harassed, the political climate, and of course, their sycophant followers will say, oh, they're caving to the racists. They're caving to the Klan, who I've never saw in my actual living life. That's who they're caving to. But the reality is, at least while Trump is in office, they're seeing people have less tolerance with pushing forth these narratives that pretty much give the green light to be discriminatory towards, so-called white people. I mean, quite frankly. Because, again, that's what this game would have been all about. It just would have been a game about killing white people. Because anybody white, even your most liberal of libtard, is deemed a racist. And we know the people that work there, they would have made it a point to do that very thing. Now they probably would have mainly focused on white men, which is why I say any white males that consume mainstream media garbage are utter racially cucked. I mean, even your most self-proclaimed based online are still consumers of games. And because this game that's not being made is one of many other examples of games that were actually made that are actively out there to hate white men in particular. So yeah, you're cucks if you're still consuming any of this mainstream media garbage. Video games, movies, television shows, theme parks, sports ball, any of it. Now, I could imagine Ubisoft, being so bold as libtards are, I could imagine that they would have the big black man not just kill white men Klans members, but white women as well. And why not? While you have it, have them kill white kids, since, they're Klansmen racists after all. I mean, because again, this is the logic behind this trash. Which is why you have the mainstream media covering for transformers that go and mass shoot at Christian and Catholic school settings. Because, they're going to be a future white supremacist. You might as well get them while they're young. And if you can't put them in the grave, you try to get them through pushing sexual degeneracy on them or encouraging them to hate themselves, which this video game would have been a part of that, pushing self-hate amongst whitey narrative. But ultimately, it's on so-called white people to punish these companies financially for pushing this garbage. Now, again, there's no hope with a liberal white. They're perpetually a cuck seeking semen after their big black bull inseminate their wife and, God forbid, children as well. Because this is how pathetic specifically these liberal white men are. They would just sit there and allow their own wife and child to be molested and murdered in front of them, just as long as they're not branded as racist. But for the non-liberal ones, you're not too far behind them if you continue to consume this trash. And I'm a Negro. I'm the one who should, I don't know, maybe not care about this, but again, unlike 99.9% of other Negroes, I don't like to be pandered to. And I most certainly don't like falsehoods being pushed. And the reality behind, post-Civil War, what Civil War was about, Reconstruction, the Klan, those narratives push are utter lies. They're utter lies. But anyway, that game is not happening, but it's plenty of material like it that's out there. And the only way to truly have it all canceled is by no longer supporting mainstream media content ever again.